Ladies and gentlemen, the hype train continues for Nintendo's NX hardware. So in this RedGamingTech.com video, we're going to be discussing just that. So we've already reported that, of course, the software development kits have already started to do the rounds with developers, which means the developers have a rough indication of what the hardware for Nintendo's follow-up to the Wii U will be capable of. However, it has now been reported both to the Wall Street Journal and it's doing rounds the internet as a whole that there will be industry-leading and cutting-edge chips inside the system. Well, more specifically, the demos that have been shown off for the hardware are on very high-level PCs, and in fact, when describing the demos, our correspondent of the Wall Street Journal, his name is Takashi Mochizuki, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, I will give you the spelling to his name, Takashi, and then his last name, Mochi, and then Zuki, Zuki, one word. Anyway, as I said, he is a correspondent at the Wall Street Journal, and he has been speaking with various people in the industry. Now, accordingly, several people who have seen the demo have confided in him that they said that it is, quote, impossible to run on a computer without industry-leading or cutting-edge chips. They did not elaborate as to the performance levels, and as we all know that it's probable, not confirmed, but probable that the actual chip specifications are not finalized yet. Now, it's possible, and these are examples, that we could have situations where the amount of RAM for the system has not been confirmed yet. We all know what happened with the PlayStation 4. There were quite a lot of developers who, up until basically the system was pretty much about to be announced to the actual public, let alone to developers, but to the public, everyone knew that the system had 4GB GDDR5. Everyone knew it. 4GB. I didn't misspeak. 4GB. It was only when Sony officially announced it that some developers were like, okay, did he misspeak? He said 8GB. Basically, people just were not sure. And in fact, many people knew that the Xbox One had a CPU of 1.6 GHz. What happened? That's right, Microsoft overclocked. Well, not overclocked it, the CPU is technically capable of 2 GHz, but they said they were getting really good yields from their SoCs, so therefore they were able to squeeze the CPU up to 1.75 GHz. Everyone cited that the GPU of the Xbox One was running at 800 MHz. What happened? They pushed it up to 853. Does this sound familiar to you? And if we start going through all of the potentials, like the Dreamcast is a really, really fascinating one. I've been doing a lot of research on the Dreamcast as part of a series I want to be doing in the future, which I won't discuss in this particular video, but I've been doing a lot of retro research, and suffice to say, the Dreamcast, there were multiple different ways the developers could go. They could have, for example, gone the route they did go, which is an SH4, which is basically the successor, I guess you could say, to the same CPU that was inside the Sega Saturn, along with Power VR, or they could have gone a different route, which they didn't end up doing, and that was actually using kind of a derivative of a 3DFX Voodoo 2/Banshee type of chip. And basically, there were two companies, well, effectively two engineering teams anyway. There was the American Sega and the Japanese Sega, and they were both competing with different designs, and it just so happened they went with the Japanese for a myriad of different reasons, including 3DFX themselves leaking the fact that when they were putting up their IPO, initial public offering, they basically disclosed the fact that they were going to be using, Sega were going to be using their chips inside their console. Obviously, Sega were not happy about that because they wanted A, the existence of the console to remain secret, and B, they didn't want anyone to know what the specifications of that, least of all their competitors, so they basically backed out and it became a whole thing. Now, in case you're wondering why I just spent the last minute or two speaking about this, I'm just pointing out that it's probable that this chap is right and the actual final specifications are not set in stone yet. So it could be that they're still testing a couple of different designs or figuring out what they can get away with in terms of, let's say, RAM, yields, what have you. However, the real takeaway here is that the system, from what we're understanding, is requiring a lot of processor power. However, when it comes to industry leading or cutting edge, your perspective on that can really differ. I'll give you an example, and this is not a particularly super in-depth example, but still, if you were to go back, say, 3 or 4 years, you could get a DirectX 11 capable graphics card. Actually, to be exact, the first DirectX 11 GPU was showed off by AMD back in 2009, and it came available to the public late 2009, early 2010 was when it started to become more commonplace. My point being that technically, apart from a few bits here and there, DirectX 11 specifications have slightly improved, but while you could play a new game on that DirectX 11 hardware, on say a mid-range device, to get most of the special effects, it's going to be running at a really crappy performance. So that's technically what they could have meant. They could have meant that, hey, the GPU inside of that is up to date. You know, you couldn't run those special effects on an older CPU, on an older GPU. It doesn't necessarily, cutting edge doesn't necessarily mean powerful. A really simple example of that is you could get a really modern phone, so it's cutting edge in terms of the software inside of it, it's cutting edge in terms of the processor, in terms of, you know, the size of it, the power consumption, what it's capable of for the price range, but in reality, if you were to compare it to a phone, say 2 or 3 years ago, it's still only as powerful or further behind. And that's why, when asked, does he believe that it's as powerful as, let's say, the PlayStation 4, he said, I don't know. I'm not certain about that. I don't know, sorry. However, as I've mentioned multiple times over, the PlayStation 4 is 2 years old basically now. I'm rounding it up. So the fact that dev kits already popped out, people are saying it's industry-leading chips, rumours are pointing that AMD are the ones that are providing the APU. You can Google that yourselves. I won't cite sources because they're so numerous. It's pretty commonly held knowledge that Nintendo would probably go for AMD simply because of A, what AMD have said, B, what we know about just the industry as a whole. What that actually means to us in terms of the specifications is still unknown. For example, it could be that AMD are just going to be providing the GPU. However, from what they've said, it appears to be an entire APU, which is one of the reasons that I've said in my previous video about this. Personally, I think it's either x86 derivative or possibly some type of ARM derivative. It's possible it could be a PowerPC based build, which is, you know, a good way to go. It could be RISC, but I'm probably going to say maybe x86 is probably more, I wouldn't say sensible, because Nintendo have this I can't say this any other way other that wouldn't sound insulting, but they basically will do whatever the hell they have to do, and that's what it is. Nintendo are a force unto themselves. They don't necessarily agree with what the industry does, which is actually, in my opinion, despite the fact that I have criticized Nintendo, for example, with their YouTube policy, and the fact that I don't believe they went in the right direction for the Wii U, I do respect them for the most part for actually just doing their own thing and thinking bugger it just because others have done it. Doesn't mean we should do it, which I respect. But Satoru Iwata, who of course was the former president of Nintendo, said in March that the NX is going to be a platform dedicated to video games. Now, obviously, Iwata himself passed away, unfortunately, back in July, and then in September, Tatsumi Kimimashima, who is now taking over the role. It's going to be very interesting because I personally believe that Nintendo are no longer a video games company, at least according to an industry veteran. Now, I don't know 100% about that. I think that Nintendo do have a hell of a lot of change on the cards, but what the actual hardware for this damn thing is going to be, I'm really curious. And moreover than just the hardware, what the balls is it going to be like in terms of online service? What's it going to be like in terms of the controller? What's it going to be like in terms of, just for the sake of argument, storage medium? Like, that's a big one. That might sound silly to you when I say storage medium, but there are some who are reporting that Nintendo are not, I repeat, not going to be using physical media. I don't know if I believe that. I think they might have considered it at some point, and God knows, we all know that Microsoft considered the same thing, and probably Sony, but I don't think they would do that because they know that not everyone has a fast enough internet connection. I guess it depends as well on the level of specifications. For example, if they're going for a machine that's not much more powerful than the Wii U, which is highly unlikely, they could possibly get away with it because texture sizes and so on are going to be considerably smaller. On the other hand, if they're going to be going for a system that's as powerful as, let's say, the PlayStation 4, for sake of argument, texture sizes and all of the other bits and bobs which go into making the game, the actual assets, they kind of get bigger, don't they? Let's just be honest. Now, I would be less inclined to disbelieve that when it comes to the actual handheld. So, for example, if the handheld is part of the system, just for sake of argument, and there is no physical storage media, so in other words, no cartridges, instead you download the damn thing via either your PC or via Wi-Fi, or you do it via the actual console itself and browse via the marketplace. And obviously the games may be smaller. For the sake of argument, they could be 1 or 2 gigabytes, which is quite manageable even on a slower connection nowadays. Let's face it, most people have at least 5 or 10 megabyte connection. Most people have considerably faster than that, but I would say the vast majority have at least, let's say, a 5 MB connection, which is not exactly Pleasantville for downloading say 2 gig file, but you know, you could deal with it. Anyway, I've spoken a little bit about the physical media in terms of the controller. To be honest, fuck knows. I mean, let's just be honest. Nintendo, for the original SNES / Super Famicom, their controller, I wouldn't go as far as to say revolutionary, but we all know that it was the inspiration for the PlayStation pad. We know that the NES pad, in terms of the D-pad and so on, was inspirational for the controllers at large. It's not to say that others hadn't done similar, but Nintendo really helped to define it and refine it. Then you had the N64 pad, which was friggin' bizarre. I think we all know that N64 pad was bizarre as balls. Like, first time I used it, my exact thoughts were, oh my god, what the fuck, barbecue ruffle cakes. Well, maybe not quite that, but it was still like, what the hell is this? But after a few minutes, I thought, wow, this is actually really cool. And we all know that others started to incorporate analog. To be honest with you, I think Nintendo should have added 2 analog sticks, but that's by the by. Sega obviously implemented one for the Knights pad as well. And then you have, of course, the GameCube pad, which is a friggin' weird pad. For fighting games, it was absolutely sucked balls, in my opinion. Well, for some fighting games, like, for example, Capcom vs SNK 2, Soul Calibur, it wasn't very ideal, which was really weird because the D-pad itself actually felt quite nice, but the button layout and shoulder layout was pretty crappy. But for other games, for example, let's say, I don't know, Metroid Prime, it was actually really nice. And then, of course, you saw the evolution to the Wii, which I didn't like. I'll just be honest, I really didn't like the Wii pad. I thought it sucked. I did not like motion controls, despite the fact that I think some Wii games were really good, and some did benefit from motion. But overall, I wasn't a fan of it, and I wasn't really a fan of what they did with the Wii U controller. So if it truly is for gamers, it's kind of like 6 of one, half a dozen the other. What the hell Nintendo mean by that? I don't think they're going to go virtual reality at the start. It would be kind of cool if it did. But then, I don't know what virtual reality Mario would look like. It could either be the worst thing ever, Or it could be literally the best thing ever. I don't know. Obviously, I'm just using Mario. It could be F-Zero. F-Zero could be kind of cool, or virtual reality Star Fox. There's a thought. Virtual reality Star Fox could be kind of cool. Anyway, it's pretty bizarre. I'm sure you'll all agree. Me thought, me opinion. Well, I don't know. I'd like to see Nintendo with a really powerful system. I think the reason I would like it, I would like to see a system that's a third more powerful than PlayStation 4. I think if it was, I'd be really happy. I think that to me would show a great deal of performance increase over this current generation is capable of now. I think it would give Nintendo a great edge in terms of that mindshare of gamers, and I think that Nintendo themselves, more than the performance of the console, they need to just get back to the roots. They need to sort out their YouTube issues, because we all know that Sony and Microsoft, they're really on board with the whole streaming thing. Honestly, like, as a YouTuber, I rarely get bothered in terms of copyright notices and any of that bollocks from Nintendo or Sony. They just don't give a crap. Some companies do, but the average, they just don't, because they know it's good advertising. Nintendo need to get on board with that, because, for example, Mario Maker. Personally, I think that they would probably have had a situation like Minecraft on their hands if they'd have nurtured that. I mean, maybe not quite to Minecraft degree, but for the love of Jesus, I mean, cracking down on things such as speedruns and tool-assisted gameplay is not what you want to do, Nintendo. Instead, you need to focus on and encourage the sharing of the levels, give tools, and, you know, actually reward the community which are building these damn levels, and provide, you know, prizes. Like, imagine, do a monthly prize for the best courses, or the best, you know, course designer, and have them promote that stuff on YouTube. It just boggles the mind. It certainly wouldn't have improved the Wii U sales to the PlayStation 4's degree. I'm not gonna bullshit you, but it would have drastically given it a kick up the butt, in my opinion. Because Mario Maker, oh my god, I mean, who didn't want to start designing Sonic levels when they were a kid, or Mario levels? I remember entering the bloody cheat code on Sonic 2 where you could start creating your own, or adjusting your own levels, because you could turn Sonic into rings in bloody TV screens. And that was sucky compared to what, you know, you can do in Mario Maker. It just absolutely boggles the mind that they don't start doing stuff like this. So hopefully Nintendo as a company are slowly starting to correct the course, but, you know, hopefully the NX, I'm really hoping it does have streaming. I don't think it will. I don't think it's going to have the capability to play Blu-rays. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't think... I mean, let's be honest, the Wii did. It had the ability to, let's say, watch Netflix through it, because I've got a friend who uses Netflix through their Wii, and that's literally what they use the Wii for now, because they've got all the other consoles, so it's like, what else are you going to use the Wii for, right? You know, the odd game here and there, but primarily it's now the Netflix system. We can only wait. Unfortunately, Nintendo, unless there's a big ass leak, and I'm hoping there is, unfortunately all we can do now is just wait. Anyway, come on Nintendo, the ball's in your court, let's see what you've got. But with that said, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Has it been entertaining for you? Have you not been entertained? If the answer is no, then sad face. Sad, 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 sad face. But anyway, thanks for watching the video. If you managed to make it through almost 20 minutes of my rambling thingy, something. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for watching. Do the likey, sharey, subscribey thing if you've not already done so. I appreciate your interest in the video, and for now, I'm going to get going, so take care of yourselves. Have an excellent morning, day, evening, whatever the balls you're doing, and bye for now.